Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Friday, January 27, 2012 program of the Infowars Nightly News. I'm Aaron Dykes. We have a big program tonight, particularly focusing on governmental corruption, institutional corruption. Now, coming up in the final segment, we have a guest. It's Antonio Buehler. He's back on the program to talk about how he was set up with false charges here in Austin with the police department when he filmed the arrest and harsh treatment of a woman on New Year's Eve. They trumped up charges and have refused to release the video that would exonerate him. That's coming up later in the program. But we want to talk about this whole global system tonight. So I want to mention the writings of Zbigniew Brzezinski, one of the top globalists. In the 70s, he wrote the book Between Two Ages, and among other things, it outlined how under this global system, in this global era, institutional corruption is built in. It's a natural fact that gangs and drug organizations would be working with the government. That's why you see so much of this drug laundering on Wall Street, facilitating guns for Mexican drug gangs and all the rest of it. So keep that in mind as these stories come up. Now, our first lie of the evening in institutional corruption is that the video was leaked showing that Rand Paul, in fact, did not act irate as police reported he did when he was detained by the TSA. We're going to roll some of that video now. You could see him in the lower left-hand corner of that video. The footage was obtained by the Tennessean and shows the senator seated in a chair within a glass wall cubicle in the security area of the Nashville airport after refusing to undergo a pat-down. The video then shows Paul later being escorted through the airport by an official. The footage represents about 1 minute of the incident, compressed from over an hour. The point is, the media said he wasn't even detained when he was detained for well over an hour. They said he was the one misbehaving, even if he was irate. How does that break the law? How does that break the Constitution, as the TSA institutionally do with the 10th Amendment, the 4th Amendment, and so much more? Now, this ties into a larger rash of Homeland Security, the Homeland Stasi, really trying to grow its mission. I wrote about this earlier in the week. Shock docs, total federalization of police under new Homeland Security mission. And what you have is the Aspen Group, one of these public policy global institutions, with their subgroup, the Homeland Security Group. It's headed, co-chaired by former Homeland Security Director Michael Chertoff. It's got a host of other so-called national security experts that you've seen in the past 3 or 4 governments. And they all agree we have to evolve the mission for Homeland Security, shift away from fighting terrorism. They even have quotes where they say they're going to hire police in local departments and oversee their training. We're talking about a total takeover of our society in this private-public fascist organization as they increasingly target the domestic life here in America. They have similar models in other countries. We've seen them in classical tyrannies, and now it's coming here. It's a big experiment for America, and we're failing that experiment because we, the people, are not recognizing the gross intrusion, the overreach of powers, and the total lies about their mission of fighting terrorism. Every case they've brought up is a total hoax, and we have highlighted that in a very important video. I stayed up last night all night. So if I miss a few words, that's why. On the TSA lies, it's so exhausting to document it because there's been so many cases. Radiation lies, lies about the groping, lies about their policies, lies about the incidents like the underwear bomber that supposedly led to body scanners when they were already phasing them into airports before that event even took place. And when people like Michael Chertoff are on the board for the companies and make money from those sales and help represent them. Let's roll that video now.
You to go places in half the time it takes to travel by car. For some trips, it'll be faster than flying without the pat-down.
It's the sort of security we've seen a lot of since 9/11 at places like airports and now here at the bus station.
Specific, credible, recent threats that are causing what some believe to be these invasive screening tactics.
Robin, we know the threats are real, and we've seen this latest information coming out of Al-Qaeda and Arabian Peninsula.
Remind Americans why we now check our liquids. It's because a mother was willing to blow up the baby and the entire plane with the liquids.
Right.
The Department of Homeland Security has not been forthcoming with the public about the true extent of radiation risk.
Advanced imaging technology would not have discovered the type of bomb that Umar Farouk Abdul-Muttalib had secreted in his underwear.
Well, I think reasonable people may disagree on that.
We are not retaining, we are not keeping. They're not designed for that at all.
The TSA is reiterating today that although its machines can store images when they're being tested, quote, all functionality to store, export, or print images is disabled.
Throughout history and in every culture, there is a basic precept of law that if someone has been caught lying before.
What's the difference between lying and misleading Congress?
It all has to do with your state of mind and whether or not you had the requisite intent to come up with something that can be considered perjury or a lie.
You should not believe anything else that they tell you.
It would not apply to those who are here illegally. It's not true.
And when someone has been confirmed to be a congenital or serial liar, you are a fool to believe anything they say.
It has been months, and you tell me that you're not, you weren't doing it because of an IG investigation. Well, let's go through a few questions here, Madam.
Well, wait just a minute.
Let me finish my question.
Wait just a minute.
Madam Secretary, let me finish my question.
Go ahead. That insinuation is not accurate.
You know about the TSA and their penchant for molesting children, raping women in parking lots, robbing luggage, stealing cash out of wallets, beating people up, and then lying about them. You know about their penchant for child porn and the incredible statistical analysis that we've seen that they are predisposed to engage in crime. No kidding. Who else wants a job groping men, women, and children all day and making old ladies who can't walk crawl out of wheelchairs and ripping colostomy bags off of people's sides? Who else wants to abuse people all day but criminals and control freaks? But in this report, I want to look at just some of their lies because they're constantly lying. And the prostitute traitor stream media that serves the globalist and these brown shirts of the federal takeover need to all be called on the carpet. Now, let's just look at the latest lie that came out today. The Tennessean newspaper reports Nashville airport video doesn't show irate Senator Rand Paul. And they link to the video, and there is Paul being completely calm with the police. They're now also having to admit that he was detained for more than an hour and a half, as he said he was, which under common law is a custodial arrest. So there you have it. Within minutes of this being put out by Ron Paul on his Twitter, the New York Times talked to the TSA and said he wasn't even stopped for 5 minutes. He's a liar, and he was irate. And the police put in their report, part of this culture of lying, that he was irate. All lies by a group of people that lie and lie and lie some more. And then, of course, lie some more. And we have the White House siding with the TSA. We have Rush Limbaugh coming out and saying, oh, his dad's like a Muslim terrorist. You know, let start the groping. You know, after all, he flies on private jets. But let's look at some of the TSA lies that affect us all. Radiation. They've had studies back in the late 1990s from these same systems. And that's why they weren't deployed all over the world. These things have been around for decades, that they're massively linked to different types of cancer. So Johns Hopkins and many other prestigious universities come out and put out reports in the last few years saying, our studies show this stuff can give you cancer. I mean, the scans are so powerful, you can see the skeleton bones in the fingers. I mean, it's high-powered. And all these studies come out, so the TSA comes out and says, Johns Hopkins says it's totally safe. And the head of Johns Hopkins radiology department comes out and says, our study actually says the opposite. And the TSA doesn't correct their mistake because it's not a mistake. They are a pack of criminal, out of control, 10th Amendment violating and 4th Amendment violating goons who are now setting up checkpoints on the highways of America. And that's why the feds don't care how much anger or how many tens of billions in tourism the TSA destroys. From foreigners that won't come here and Americans like myself that won't travel because I won't have my family groped. because they're getting ready to be all over the United States. They're going to hire your local police, it's been announced. They're going to run checkpoints, mobile vans. It's already happening. So you think you're just not going to fly and get away with this? Oh, sorry. There's plenty of people that couldn't hold a job at McDonald's that are going to be officer and agent TSA. And your wife's in deep trouble. And your children, they're in even deeper trouble. Psychologists have come out and pointed out that the TSA groping of children is actually training them that when pedophiles touch them to test and see if they've been acclimated for rape, that they will submit to the touching and not say no. And what's the TSA say? They say, we don't think that's the case. And again, lie to the public and say everything's okay and claim, despite the fact that there are hundreds of videos and photos showing them taking babies' diapers off and going in the pants of small children, they come out and say over and over again for 3 years, we do not go in the clothes or even through the clothes and touch genitals of under 12. And then hundreds of videos come out and they say, okay, we're going to stop. Last time they said that was in November of 2010. And continued it over and over again and said again, we won't do it. Continued it. Lying, lying, lying. First they say it's not groping and sexual assault. Then they say they're not doing it. Then they say they're going to stop doing it and continue it over and over again. Lying about radiation, lying about groping, lying about the sexual assault, lying about the statistics on how many of their people are caught engaged in every crime you can imagine. But then you see bizarre statements on the TSA blog and in their press releases saying there's hardly any complaints. Why? Hardly anyone is against this, and we only pat down 2%, which is a total lie. I fly all the time. I'm forced to as a journalist. I fly a lot. My crew flies a lot. And in hundreds of flights total, we've estimated that at least a third of the people where we fly are groped, including most people who are put through the naked body scanners. So they're lying to you about radiation. They're lying to you about groping and sexual assault. They're lying and saying they're going to stop doing it to children. Or they say they never did it to children. Or they say they didn't go in the pants of Miss USA. And then she goes and gets the video and they admit they did it. But let's continue. A few months ago, a whole bunch of 85 and 90-year-old women, many of which couldn't even get out of their wheelchairs, started reporting that they were taken behind closed doors and made to take all their clothes off. And the TSA came out and said, you're lying, we don't do that. And then so many people went public that they said, well, we do take you behind closed doors and take your clothes off. We don't call it a strip search. And then even in their apology, the women who've been assaulted by them say it's all lies. I mean, it's lies within lies within lies within lies. But what do you expect from a federal brown shirt goon force meant to dog train us and break our will to basically live like maximum security prisoners? They're coming to malls, highway checkpoints, they're already there. Sporting games. We're all being trained to have government put their hands on us, and TSA is now training for forced inoculation. Federal grants to local police, they're training them for forced inoculation. That's why they're doing this. That's why they're lying to the American people, because we're seen as an enemy, and you lie to an enemy in warfare. This is a foreign banking cartel occupying the United States, and the TSA is their shock troops to bureaucratically go out there and train us to accept this. In just the last week, Homeland Security has come out and said, we're not just about terror. We're going to hire your local police. We're going to certify who can get jobs anywhere. We're going to set up checkpoints in your town. We're going to have spies all over Twitter and Facebook. We're going to have citizen spies on the ground recording what you say politically. They are recreating classical, hardcore despotism. This is 200 proof evil. This is certified as bad as it gets. It's conscious takeover. Oh, and also they said that the machines could not physically hold images.
The machines are not set to store images. They're not set to transmit images.
And then we got the manuals sent to us by insiders that said that when they test the machines, they look to see if they can see the genitals, and that is the marker they look for to make sure that the machine is tuned right, and that indeed all the images are saved, not just at airports, but at courthouses, and have been leaked and shared, and they pin them up on the wall, and when they see a good-looking woman that's come out, they put them through them. So they lied about saving the images. There have been cases in England where they come up to famous film stars and ask them to sign scans of their own genitals. This is really happening. And of course, it's a bunch of abusers that are willing to take these jobs. Remember that basic precept in law, that if someone's been caught lying before, don't believe anything they say, and they're criminals. What do they say about the devil? He's the father of lies. Whether you believe in the devil or not, this is a devilish attribute that we're seeing. This is tyranny. Why do we just accept when government lies about Rand Paul and says that he was irate and wasn't detained? Both lies. Why do we not get upset about that? Why do we trust people that act like this? The truth is, more and more Americans are awake. Congress has a 9% approval rating. The system knows we're waking up to them. So now they're taking the velvet glove off the iron fist and just going with the iron fist. It is time to reawaken the spirit of 1776. It is time to recognize it is criminal when the TSA violates the 10th and 9th Amendment and operates in our states. But it's even more criminal when they grope our children, our wives, and our husbands and harass our old people and make cancer patients get out of wheelchairs that can't walk and make passengers help get them out of their chair. This is assault, and it's criminal. It's sexual and physical assault. But it's also criminal when we put up with it. We become cowardly accomplices to these scum. The TSA takeover of America has unified the people, and so have a lot of other issues. And the system knows that their attempt to break our will is backfiring. Get this key report out to everyone you know. The future of our republic and the world depends on it, because this corporate tyranny is being exported everywhere. And speak out against these criminals and let the TSA and their handlers know we're aware of their criminal takeover and stand against their terrorism against the American people.
Well, here's a couple of things that we're working on. Number one is expanding trusted traveler programs where people will get biometric cards. They've already supplied information. We know they are safe to travel. We can move them through the system.
And of course, the overarching point of Alex's video there that I helped put together is, why would you trust known liars? When they were caught lying about Fast and Furious, when they were caught lying about so many other issues, when the Bush administration was caught lying about WMDs, why would you trust them on terrorism? Why would you trust them with this gross, huge agency, TSA, under the wings of Homeland Security? Why would you believe their bull when 9/11 was so staged and see-through? Kurt Nimmo wrote up a great article on this video, TSA, Greatest Liars on Earth. You can find that at Infowars.com. Now, we showed you last night many of the issues that Obama obscured in his 2012 State of the Union address. That is, if you even recognize him as a true president. None of these presidents are. They're all puppets for the globalist powers that have hijacked our government. But Rob Dew did some research bringing up some of the lies and hidden agendas that he brought forward in the 2011 State of the Union. And we're going to roll that footage now that just kind of illustrates some of the things he brought forward, including joking about the TSA and how if you take his new high-speed boondoggle trains, you won't get a pat-down. Well, they are phasing in pat-downs to trains, bus stations, high school proms, on the streets, at checkpoints on highways, and all the rest of it is really coming down. It's so gross to hear them laugh and snicker about this stuff. Let's roll that video.
We're also mindful of the empty chair in this chamber, and we pray for the health of our colleague and our friend, Gabby Giffords. What comes of this moment will be determined not by whether we can sit together tonight, but whether we can work together tomorrow. That's what the people who sent us here expect of us. And we are poised for progress. 2 years after the worst recession most of us have ever known, the stock market has come roaring back. Corporate profits are up. The economy is growing again. But we have never measured progress by these yardsticks alone. We measure progress by the success of our people, by the jobs they can find and the quality of life those jobs offer. We know what it takes to compete for the jobs and industries of our time. We need to out-innovate, out-educate, and out-build the rest of the world. We need to take responsibility for our deficit and reform our government. That's how our people will prosper. And in a few weeks, I will be sending a budget to Congress that helps us meet that goal. We've begun to reinvent our energy policy. We're not just handing out money. We're issuing a challenge. We're telling America's scientists and engineers that if they assemble teams of the best minds in their fields and focus on the hardest problems in clean energy. We'll fund the Apollo projects of our time. With more research and incentives, we can break our dependence on oil with biofuels and become the first country to have 1 million electric vehicles on the road by 2015. And we also have to win the race to educate our kids. Over the next 10 years, nearly half of all new jobs will require education that goes beyond a high school education. And yet, as many as a quarter of our students aren't even finishing high school.
And of course, this is not about Barack Obama as the first black president. This has been the gradual destruction of our nation for decades. However, it's very sad that the iconic first black president, such a symbol of hope, the end of slavery in this country and everything, would preside over the greatest looting and transfer of wealth in all of history. Is it really better for us to all be debt slaves? Is that real progress? You decide for yourself, but there's so many lies, and they're propping up these big corporate giants on, sucking off of government welfare. It's such total institutional corruption. We have even more. Let's go.
Now, I strongly believe that we should take on, once and for all, the issue of illegal immigration. And I am prepared to work with Republicans and Democrats to protect our borders, enforce our laws, and address the millions of undocumented workers who are now living in the shadows. And let's stop expelling talented, responsible young people who could be staffing our research labs or starting a new business, who could be further enriching this nation. Within 25 years, our goal is to give 80% of Americans access to high-speed rail. This could allow you to go places in half the time it takes to travel by car. For some trips, it'll be faster than flying, without the pat-down. As we speak, routes in California and the Midwest are already underway. I am proposing that starting this year, we freeze annual domestic spending for the next 5 years. Now, this would reduce the deficit by more than $400 billion over the next decade. This freeze will require painful cuts. Already, we've frozen the salaries of hard-working federal employees for the next 2 years. I propose cuts to things I care deeply about, like community action programs. The Secretary of Defense has also agreed to cut tens of billions of dollars in spending that he and his generals believe our military can do without. Look to Iraq, where nearly 100,000 of our brave men and women have left with their heads held high. American combat patrols have ended. Violence is down, and a new government has been formed. This year, our civilians will forge a lasting partnership with the Iraqi people while we finish the job of bringing our troops out of Iraq. America's commitment has been kept. The Iraq War is coming to an end. Of course, as we speak, Al-Qaeda and their affiliates continue to plan attacks against us. Thanks to our intelligence and law enforcement professionals, we're disrupting plots and securing our cities and skies. And as extremists try to inspire acts of violence within our borders, we are responding with the strength of our communities, with respect for the rule of law. In Afghanistan, our troops have taken Taliban strongholds and trained Afghan security forces. Our purpose is clear. By preventing the Taliban from reestablishing a stranglehold over the Afghan people, we will deny Al-Qaeda the safe haven that served as a launching pad for 9/11. Thank you. God bless you. And may God bless the United States of America.
Total theater for the masses, the ultimate puppet president. The buck does not stop in the Oval Office. It's run by you-know-who and you-know-who else. But so sick to see a bunch of known liars, a bunch of complicit murderers, and a bunch of silent, contemptuous, standby, do-nothing Congress, in-on-it criminals cheering and applauding the total destruction of America as they bring in the Homeland Security, grope-down system, and all the rest of it. It's just disgusting with the little I support Giffords ribbons and Look what they try to use that agenda for. Meanwhile, a Georgia judge has heard the case that Obama refused to show up to concerning the birther issue. Obama accused of contempt of court in birther hearing. Secretary of State warns Obama mishearing at your own peril. That's Paul Joseph Watson's article on Infowars and Prison Planet. And the judge is not expected to decide until February 4th. But if he does rule in default of Obama's credentials on being a natural-born citizen, he could be off the Georgia ballot. Of course, that could have a big shockwave from there if the facts of the case do support that matter. Of course, there are plenty of outstanding questions. We brought up all the inconspicuous, strange details of the birth certificate and all the rest of it when that came out, well-timed with the bin Laden killing and the Trump allegations and all the rest of it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. In other news, and some suggest that judge is planning to rule in default, some sources. We don't know if that's true. In other news, Ron Paul trounces Santorum on foreign policy in CNN debate. There's a Nolan Chart article, really just getting into the same old stuff about that poor, tired Constitution and how these great neocons and bootlickers want to take us back to a neo-feudal system. Let's roll some of the clip between Santorum and Ron Paul's exchange.
The senator mentions standing up for some of these nations, but he doesn't define it. But standing up for nations like this usually means that we impose ourselves, go and pick the dictators, undermine certain governments, also sending them a lot of money. It doesn't work. Most of the time this backfires. They resent us. We can achieve what he wants in a much different way than us using the bully attitude that you will do it our way. This is not a benefit to us. And besides, where are you going to get the troops and where are you going to get the money? Because you're talking about force. And I know of a much better way than using force to get along with people.
And then there's just another clip where Ron Paul points out the hypocrisy of all the candidates, Romney and Santorum, and their fake exchange about what to do with the health care system. He's like, you guys are all just big government cronies ready to give money to whoever wants it. That's paraphrased, of course. Let's play the real clip.
Your mandate is no different than Barack Obama's mandate. It is the same mandate. Right. He takes over, you take over 100%, just like he takes over 100%, requires the mandate. The same fines that you put in place in Massachusetts are fines that he puts in place in the federal level.
Congressman Paul's right.
I think they're all wrong. I think this is a typical result of when you get government involved, because all you're arguing about is which form of government you want. They have way too much confidence in government sorting this out. So I would say there's a much better way, and that is allow the people to make their decisions and not get the government involved. You know, it's only been... when I started medicine, there was no Medicare or Medicaid, and nobody was out in the streets without it. Now people are suffering. All the complaints going on. So the government isn't our solution. So I'm not too happy with this type of debate, trying to blame one versus the other. But most likely, we're going to continue to have this problem unless we straighten out the economy.
I'll give you 30 seconds.
Cut the spending.
And it speaks for itself, of course. The point is, even if you're not libertarian-leaning like Ron Paul, you really have to admit to yourself, no one else anywhere near this race is even halfway serious about these deep-rooted institutional problems. This deep corruption, this institutional big government, corporate crony problem we have is leached in our bones. It's taken a part of our soul. Are we ever going to come out of this alive? Only if we get really serious, and no one but Ron Paul is even in that discussion at all at that presidential debate level. As if that's even a real position. Now, in other news, there's this whole scandal over the sports stadiums in Florida. Pro teams could be forced to return millions, writes the Miami Herald. Florida State Senator Mike Bennett has repeatedly tried and failed to get the Florida legislature to pass a bill that would require voter approval before tax money could be used to help pay for stadiums or pro sports teams. He came up with a new angle, though, seeking to include a provision in a state law that says sports stadiums and arenas are supposed to be utilized by the local governments for homeless shelters, reportedly put in place by the late Senator Gordon. And what's happening here is this is more institutional corruption, because these are the classic corporate welfare clients. These stadiums, they always have boondoggles. get taxpayer money in on them, and it's all for corporate profit and this whole pageant of celebrating the corporate, private, public fascism that we have in this country and everything else that's wrong with it. Now, at the same time, it is complex. Now, they write here in the other Miami Herald article that the bill would enforce law turning stadiums into homeless shelters on off days when they're not having a game or event. We've spent over $300 million supporting teams that can afford to pay a guy $7, $8, $10 million a year to throw a baseball 90 feet. I think they could pay for their own sports stadium. Certainly true, says Michael Bennett, who's pushing for the bill along with others, and they're going to I can't believe we're going to cut money from Medicaid and take it away from homeless and take it away from the poor and impoverished and continue to support people who are billionaires. That is a good point. At the same time, it really reinforces the myth that government's supposed to take care of us. This whole wealth disparity is created by this corrupt system. We have to look deeper into the flaws here. But it does go on to report in CBS News that the Florida teams could be fined and may have to return their money if they don't house the homeless in these stadiums. According to the Miami Herald, when the Florida legislature passed a bill in '88 to get public money for stadiums, they included an obscure provision to require every taxpayer-funded pro team, including those in the MLB in Florida, to house homeless people in their stadiums, and they basically haven't done that, and they're going to try to hold them accountable. The only problem is, we were talking about this behind the scenes before, it seems like there's a built-in understanding there's a dual use for the public government usage, but that's not necessarily in the best interest of the people. We know they have all the FEMA continuity of government plans where they always rely on sports stadiums to round up the people. We covered the drill in Denver, Operation Mountain Guardian, where the most secret part of this public drill that hypothesized different terrorist events was rounding up the school children to the sports stadium and having the parents come get them. Look at what happened in New Orleans during Hurricane Katrina. Everybody was sent to the Superdome, and you have a certain sect of criminals, some known, some not, put in with the most vulnerable and helpless population all in one area, and you don't expect things to go wrong. All the rapes that went on there and the bad conditions, not to mention police shooting people on the bridges. This is not a good idea, and I think that's kind of laying under the surface there, even though I kind of agree with the sentiment. We don't need to be taxpayer funding these stadiums. We'll be back for break with a whole lot more on the global level, the world government level of this institutional corruption. And of course, we have Buehler coming up too with his incident with the APD. Stay with us. We're going to try to hold him accountable, and we need your support to do it at PrisonPlanet.tv, Infowars Nightly News.
America is in trouble.
Washington is a disgrace.
Government has become too big. It's overtaxing, overspending. We need to change direction.
We really need change.
We can't afford to make the same mistakes we've made in the past.
Mitt Romney's reputation as a flip-flopper.
He went the other way when he got paid to go the other way.
There is need for economic stimulus.
It's about serial hypocrisy.
This election is about trust. There's been one true, consistent candidate, and that's Dr. Ron Paul.
Ron Paul has been so consistent from the very beginning.
He seems like a more honest candidate.
He tells the truth about what he believes, whether you like it or not.
He's never once voted for a tax increase, never once voted for an unbalanced budget.
Ron Paul's plan is bold, cuts 5 departments. It's what we need.
When he says he's going to cut $1 trillion in the first year, I believe it.
If you don't like how things are going and you're tired of politicians, he's something different.
Ron Paul.
Ron Paul.
Ron Paul.
Ron Paul
is the one we've been looking for.
I'm Ron Paul, and I approve this message.
And we are back from break again. I'm Aaron Dykes, and I said we're going to go global. Let's do that now. The first global repercussions continue to be from the Fukushima fallout after the earthquake in Japan. It is a little hard to know given what is deemed a safe level of radiation and determined by politics rather than science. For example, current safety standards are based on the ridiculous assumption that everyone exposed is a healthy man in his 20s. The radioactive particles ingested in the body cause no more damage than radiation hitting the outside of the body. We were talking about how instead of protecting people, governments, plural, continue to cover up by raising the, quote, safe levels of radiation. We know the role that TEPCO and the Japanese government played in not informing the public there in Japan and around the world. But of course, the Canadian and American governments have gone on to raise the so-called safe limit of radiation and just covering up for the fact that we're totally contaminated by this event and people are going to die. But what you don't have to worry about is global warming. That's according to at least 16 scientists among many, many, many who come forward to say there's no need to panic about global warming. It's here in the the Wall Street Journal. It's a statement that was signed by a number of scientists. Perhaps the most inconvenient fact is the lack of global warming for well over 10 years now. This is known to the warming establishment, as one can see from the 2009 ClimateGate email of climate scientist Kevin Trenberth. The fact is we can't account for the lack of warming at the moment, and it's a travesty that we can't. Now, you and I know, but many of the new listeners may not know, that this whole global warming thing was part of branding man as the enemy so they could use environmentalism to take over the so-called commons, the air, the earth, the whole globe under this United Nations model, the Agenda 21 model, all about taking over our normal human lives and imposing this neo-feudal world government. What am I talking about? Let's read from this, The First Global Revolution, from the Club of Rome, a patently politically bent, supposedly pseudoscience-backed group, just like these pro-global warming scientists. The common enemy of humanity is man. This is on page 115 if you got the book. In searching for a new enemy to unite us, we came up with the idea that pollution, the threat of global warming, water shortages, famine, and the like would fit the bill. In their totality and in their interactions, these phenomena do constitute a common threat which demands the solidarity of all peoples. But in designating them as the enemy, we fall into the trap about which we've already warned, namely mistaking symptoms for causes. All these dangers are caused by human intervention, and it's only through changed attitudes of behavior that they can be overcome. The real enemy, then, is humanity itself, and believe me, this has everything to do with depopulating the planet and all the rest. But I told you we were looking at global government institutional corruption. Davos is going on right now, the elite retreat there in Switzerland, and among the topics is global governance failure. The global governance model's failing. I thought it was going to save us. Well, actually, it's just a lecture to tell us how good it could be at solving the world's inequalities. We even found a video. Let's cue part of that now.
Benefits of globalization seem unevenly spread. A minority is perceived to have harvested a disproportionate amount of the fruits. Issues of economic disparity and equity at both the national and the international levels are becoming increasingly important. Politically, there are signs of resurgent nationalism and populism, as well as social fragmentation. To meet these challenges and the other risks detailed in the report, improved global governance is essential. But this is one of the 21st century paradoxes. The conditions that make improved global governance so crucial, divergent interests, conflicting incentives, and differing norms and values, are also the ones that make its realization so difficult, complex, and messy. The G20 is seen as the most hopeful development in global governance, but its efficiency in this regard has not been proven.
Okay, that's enough, but you see where they try to brand the whole G20 process as a way to save us and bring us into greater global government. This is just more of the problem reaction solution. First they moan, oh, there's a global governance failure, as this picture so adequately captures. Oh, they've failed at global governance, but they're going to make it better by bringing us more. And meanwhile, they lay on this environmental stuff, trying to make us feel guilty for the economic disparity. They make no mention of the hidden shadow elite groups that are controlling the IMF, who are directing population control in the third worlds and making those really captive populations economically unable to break out of their chains and shackles. They captured most of the developing world already. They're currently in the process of rounding up Europe under all the IMF deals there, and I have to speculate that North America is next. They appear to be containing us now, bringing us into this global government thing, but it's totally institutionally corrupt, as Brzezinski pointed out in the 70s, that the actual global government institution would itself facilitate the organized crime because it's preferable to the chaos of individuals choosing whether or not to engage in crime or improve their own lives. Meanwhile, let's see how this ties into Bill Gates, who constantly tells us he's saving lives with this precious money he's donating through his offshore philanthropy fund. And here's an ABC News article from 2 days ago ago how he's going to fund a little money for U.S. schools, but most of the money he wants to spend in the developing world because don't you feel guilty? Your life isn't worth as much as an African life, and he cares so much, and he's going to save the Africans. Monsanto, by the way, has also created a fund to make grants to rural schools in America, but it's peanuts, really just to indoctrinate, co-op, and create sharecroppers out of Americans while they capture the developing world further, as we discussed. Now, we have some important quotes here. I'm sorry, these got ahead of me, but well, the question is, are human lives of equal value, Gates said. For the mother whose child dies in Africa, is that somehow less important, less painful? If we can save that life for very little money, is that appropriate too? In fact, we know that if we do save those lives, it can reduce the population growth. That's what he really wants, reducing the population. And it can let them be on a path to graduate from receiving aid. No, they're put into that IMF model where they can never get out of debt. Never. Look into it for yourself. It goes on. After the Gates Foundation's vaccination efforts in India, the nation reported that only one case of polio had occurred last year. While the foundation promises to fight preventable diseases, the top focus of the year is agriculture. And Gates' belief that without technology, he means GMOs, farmers could never feed the world's exploding population. And it goes on to discuss how, well over a year ago, Bill Gates bought over 500,000 shares of Monsanto. Bill Gates and the Bill Gates and Melinda Foundation own 500,000 shares they bought for a measly $27 million, directing that rather militaristic arm of biotechnology to help the world, to save them. Really, I thought it caused sterility, cancer, and a lack of fertility, according to all the studies they don't want to conduct. Now, this article goes on. It says, over time, countries will need to look at specific GMO products, like they look at drugs today, where they don't approve them all. They look hard at safety and the testing, and they make sure the benefits far outweigh any of the downsides. He's pushing GMOs on Africa through the AGRA, A-G-R-A, with the Rockefeller Foundation. They own the patents through Monsanto. They have shares in Monsanto, and they're going to force these crops on Africans. It's already ruined their agriculture industry, and it's probably going to bring down the population, as he already promised the vaccines will do. But you know who he blames? He blames Dr. Andrew Wakefield. Look at the clip from March of 2011 where he blames Wakefield by name for killing people, for scaremongering about the link between autism and vaccines, which Wakefield is nobly trying to save lives and warn mothers of at-risk children, while Gates is pushing him. And it's a total joke, this regulation he refers to about the pharma industry, the GMO industry. They have all kinds of loopholes, lobbyists. They write their own regulations. They approve their own products. The government's just a facility for this gross takeover of the world, all under the man is the enemy model. Have you seen this? Did you hear me? It's just gross. But the more blatant corruption of the day is, of course, the 30 pounds of cocaine that were shipped accidentally to the United Nations. Of course, a bunch of people with diplomatic immunity and corrupt ties to all the corrupt governments around the world wouldn't purposefully ship cocaine into the facilities when they launder the cocaine and other drug money just down the street at Wall Street over there. But no, the Rockefeller Foundation supported United Nations. They're up and coming, and it's all about how it was a fake diplomatic pouch and it was made to imitate a real one. No, this has been going on for decades. Among other things, I watch a lot of foreign films. It was referenced in the 1972 film, Discreet Charm of the Bourgeois. They got a Colombian minister who goes around with his diplomatic pouch shipping cocaine. And like, oh, no, no, you can't look in the diplomatic pouch. Rob Dew did some research on the corruption at the UN in regard to the drugs and everything. UN Gang, a memoir of incompetence, corruption, espionage, anti-Semitism, and Islamic extremism at the UN Secretariat. That's a book written by Pedro San Juan. He was a Bush appointee. On the day Pedro San Juan moved to his new office at the UN Secretariat in 1984, he had the foresight to unscrew his telephone receiver. Out fell a little packet of high-grade cocaine, which was, according to the story, planted by a KGB agent, a little test for them. Among other shady activities he personally observed and documented were rigged bidding for major service contracts, drug transactions conducted at the UN's parking garage, sale of shotguns and beryllium, and and more. You've heard Alex talk about all the child kidnapping rings, all that disgusting stuff. Of course it goes on. Bush himself was the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. Look what he's a part of, the Skull and Bones Network. They did the whole opium war, all that covert war. This is all about unconventional war against mankind. The man is the enemy model, as we can call it. And that's what it is. GMOs and all the rest of it, it's unconventional warfare. We better start to recognize it for what it is. We're going to take one more short break, and we'll be back with the local corruption story and what one Antonio Buehler has gotten himself involved in just by trying to record a case of police brutality. We'll be back after this, but don't forget to check out our 15-day Prison Plant TV trial and support our broadcast through that model. We also have a quote of the day. We're going to go to that right now, and it is from Otto von Bismarck, the German chancellor. He said, "I fear the foreign bankers with their craftiness and tortuous tricks will entirely control the exuberant riches of America and use it to systematically corrupt civilization." Of course, he was in the 1800s, and he saw this whole model of death by finance coming to America and the rest of the Western world, and eventually the whole globe. So that's a short precursor to that global model of corruption. Look it up for yourself, please. Thanks.
Because these people aren't playing games. 9/11 was an inside job. 9/11 was an inside job. 9/11 was an inside job.
We're going to organize. Humanity's going to come together. We are swinging muskets here, toe-to-toe with the globalists. They're bloodied. We're bloodied. It is absolute total war. If you believe in this information and want to support its viral spread, go to the Infowars store at Infowars.com. We've got the new G.I. Joe Infowars t-shirts. We've got the incredible Pro Pure gravity-fed filters available at Infowars.com in the store. We've got a new DVD, Scientists Under Attack, the Don't Tread on Me flag. We've got all sorts of different bumper stickers to help spread the rebellion virally. It's all there, wristbands, citizen rule books in every order. Order online at Infowars.com today. The water filters, the canteens, it's all there. Infowars.com.
And we are back from break. We've covered TSA, federal corruption. We've covered United Nations, international level corruption. Now we're going to talk a little about local level corruption. We have back on the program Antonio Buehler. Antonio, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
All right. And of course, you were falsely charged and arrested New Year's Eve when you began filming a woman who had been yanked out of the car. She was the passenger. I guess the driver had been pulled over, presumably for DUI reasons. And the officers were manhandling her and kind of treating her wrongly. You began to film it, and you were saying things because it didn't look right to you. And, of course, their response was to antagonize you, which is totally wrong. Why don't you update us on the situation?
Right. Well, since the last time I came on, the female spoke out, the one who was abused, and she was falsely charged with the crime of public intoxication. They came out 11 days later and applied 2 more crimes to her, disobeying a public official and resisting arrest, just completely retaliatory, just trying to make her life more difficult. I retained a great lawyer. All of us are now represented, and we're fighting these charges. People have rallied behind this. People in Austin and around the country. They're following the Facebook group. They're going to show up at the protest tomorrow at 3 p.m. on the steps of the APD. And Austin Police Department keeps backing themselves into corners with lies. Every single time they open their mouth, they say something that's fraudulent and that's going to be proven to be a lie if they ever dare release the dash cam.
Yeah. And so in your case, they're refusing to release that dash cam. They've claimed you spit on the officer, kind of giving him a reason to be provoked and try to bring you down, as the video shows. Good thing you had video there to record it. Good thing we're here in the 21st century where everybody has an equalizing camera. But why won't they release that video? And tell us what Officer Hippolito, Corporal Officer Hippolito, said.
Right. Well, they're not releasing the dash cam because it proves that they have 2 criminal cops who lied, sent people to jail, on lies, false arrest. It proves that we have criminals on the Austin Police Department force, and that the chief of police is covering for them and is protecting them. It's a cover-up, So that's the problem. Hippolito, during an interview with 2 of the TV stations, admitted there's no proof that that I spit on the guy because it's a lie.
Yeah, no proof you spit on him, but the officer maintains it. And that's in a way the bigger issue. Why are they covering for 2 corrupt officers who should face discipline, be fired, probably are facing a lawsuit, depending on what happens? Why don't they just keep the police department honest and open and accountable to the people? I mean, that's what we need.
Police officers union. That's what I'm hearing from everyone. Police officers union. There was a recent situation where a citizens review panel suggested that a cop who killed someone be fired. Nothing ever happened. The cops protected the guy. That information got leaked. The police officers union is more upset that information got leaked than the fact that this murderer cop, never got punished.
And it happens all the time, including here in Austin.
Right.
And it's a shame. And what makes your case different is that bystanders did catch it on video. You had your video. We have a clip from the newscast where they were talking about that. Let's show some of that right now.
Corporal Hippolito tells KITV while the video shows inconsistencies to Buehler's story, he admitted he could not see Buehler spitting on the officer.
It just doesn't make sense. Was it retaliatory? I don't know that.
The police department's not going to file charges just because.
Nearly 2 weeks after cell phone video captures an arrest in downtown Austin, APD slaps 2 additional charges on a woman who claims they assaulted her on New Year's Eve.
And there it is on video. They talk about inconsistencies, but it's all in the video evidence, which is why they're asking for it to be released. Now, you wanted to talk some more about Corporal Hippolito.
Yeah, I feel really bad for the guy. His job is to lie for the APD. He knows he's lying. He knows he's covering for these corrupt cops. He knows that he's a front man for Acevedo, and he's just forced to go out there every day and lie for a living. It's a shame. I wish that he would just turn in his badge and just tell the people that he can't stand to work for a corrupt organization right now.
Yeah, they really don't need to cover for the bad cops because it only makes the public more and more angry. There's been riots in town, and this happens all across the nation. I mean, the only thing that makes us different is that it was caught on video. And, of course, you put in a Freedom of Information request. They refused to release the dash cam even then, but we'll see what comes out in the trial. Now, for those here in Austin watching this live here on Friday night, tomorrow on Saturday at 3 p.m. you're having a rally outside of the police department to bring attention to this issue, ask them to do the right thing, and let them know that you're not taking it lying down. Tell us more about that.
Right, and it's not my rally. That's the great thing about this. There's so many people that are upset over this police abuse that they're rallying behind this issue, and the fact that 3 people were wrongly arrested that night and abused, fraudulent statements by the police officers. But this is just, they're sick and tired of police abuse, and this is their chance to say something. So I didn't organize the rally, but I'm talking to the people who did. But yeah, at 3 p.m. we're gonna, let the police department know that we're sick and tired of the police abuse, the corruption, and honor the good cops. Do something for the good cops. Make sure that they can remain respected on the street by getting rid of the bad cops. Stop covering for the bad cops.
I totally agree. And so if you are in the Austin area, come on out and show your support for that. If you're not in the Austin area, call them up, let them know how you feel, take it to your local police department, because these are the kind of issues going on everywhere. Now, I was bringing up earlier how it's a good thing, this wasn't 10 years ago when everybody didn't have cell phone video and these little pocket camera recorders. And you were talking about some of the other kind of institutional discrimination that it's just rampant.
Right. There's no question about it. If it weren't for my background, military, West Point, Stanford, teacher, all that stuff.
Iraq war vet.
Yeah, then people would say, oh, is this a young punk? Is this a dope head? That would be one concern. I'm not black or Hispanic, another benefit, right? I had 3 witnesses who were willing to come forward, 1 who had video. Without those people, it would be my word against the cops. So a lot of things have lined up for me. I'm lucky. There's a ton of people who don't get the benefit of the doubt, and it's quite the opposite. The cops get the benefit of the doubt. And I just wonder how many innocent people sit in prison because of a cop who lied to cover his butt.
And so much like all the big cases, all the false flag events we've seen where they tell circles of lies around it and refuse to release this video. I mean, what's so bad about the truth? Well, it's something we're facing in our overall institutions, and we got to bring this country in because this is just bad news. Anything else you'd like to add on this subject?
No, I thank everyone who's stepped forward, supported us, has been out plastering the city with flyers, who's donated to the defense fund, but also for the people who step forward with their personal stories of abuse. A lot of people, they're not willing to come forward with it, but they share with me how they've been victimized, or a family member or friend has been victimized, and it's not a one-off thing. This isn't a one-off thing. You know, this is what the fact that this was probably Aborski's first stop of the year, and he was trying to, you know, once again lead the department in DUI arrests for the year. You know, it's irrelevant.
He's
right?
a record holder, huh?
Well, yeah, he always wins the MAD award for the most arrests each year. This was probably his first stop of the year. He had a woman in the passenger seat who knew that her friend was probably you know, wrongly going to get charged with DUI, so she yelled to her, "Don't take the breathalyzer." Aborski couldn't have that. He was trying to get his first DUI of the year. He was going to lead the city again, and you know, so he started to lose it. His partner Snyder started to lose it. When I started taking pictures and asking it, they just lost control.
Yeah, and so for those who didn't see the original newscast or catch when you were on before, you know, the woman was the passenger. She hadn't done anything except try to inform her friend of her basic rights and something about how the system works, and that's when they went after her.
It's hilarious. They charged her with public intoxication. She was never a threat to anyone. She was on the phone with the person who was going to pick her up. They hadn't even arrested her driver yet, so they had no claim that her driver was drunk. Absolutely no reason to pull her out of the car. Even if she was hitting the cop and yelling, you know, profanities at the cop, it wouldn't justify what they did. You know, but they just keep lying to try to back up their story.
It's bad enough that we have thugs and gangs in this world you have to look out for, but the people in uniform are the ones who can't stand the truth, the light of day, people talking about the riots, filming what's going on. This is supposed to be an open country with the Constitution, and they're clearly afraid of that.
And at the same time, there was a madman running around Central Austin, assaulting women, killed 1, and they had 7 cops dealing with 3 peaceful citizens who never hurt anyone.
It's a shame. Well, thanks for doing your part to stand up in this case, try to hold them accountable. And for those who put this rally together, I'm going to try to make it if I have time tomorrow after I work here on the website. But other people should come out, and yeah, we'll let them know what's going on here.
Great.
All right, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah. And that's it for tonight on the Infowars Nightly News. We'll be back next week, but of course, we'll be updating all weekend long. We've got videos on the YouTube and a whole lot more. See you until then. Good night.